Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and the second video in my Sunday Rewind series where I reread books from my past. That sounds way more intriguing than it really is. The first video that I did was for Linda Howard's book Cry No More, and today's video is about Suzanne Brockmann's book Into the Storm. Into the Storm was released in 2006, and I probably read it right around that time, 2006 or 2007. It's books like Into the Storm and Cry No More that I credit for getting me back into reading as an adult, and also helping me realize that romance can be modern and fun and exciting and suspenseful and thrilling nail biters, as well as being lovey-dovey. The reason that I chose to reread Into the Storm is because I was granted access to the eARC version of Susan Brockmann's latest novel called Some Kind of Hero, and I have a review for that coming Wednesday. It had been a long time since I had read any Suzanne Brockmann, so I wanted to revisit my favorite novel by her and see how reading it through again was different than the first time. This was the first Suzanne Brockmann novel that I had ever read, and it's actually the 10th book in her Troubleshooters series. And the Troubleshooters are a team of former law enforcement, former military, former government agency employees all coming together to provide counterterrorism or personal security. They often work alongside of military, especially Navy SEALs. And most of Suzanne Brockmann's novels do contain characters in the military. So this book's main focus is on Mark Jenkins, a Navy SEAL, and Lindsay Fontaine, who is one of the Troubleshooters. She's a former Los Angeles police officer, and she's been with the Troubleshooters for quite a while. I don't know exactly how long. Mark and Lindsay are thrown together when the SEALs and the Troubleshooters team face off in a series of training exercises. Mark has had a recent near-death experience, so he is kind of feeling that internal clack, and he's ready to settle down and have children and a white picket fence. Meanwhile, Lindsay is still very conflicted about some of the events that have happened in her life, and she is not a planner, and she has no perfect scenario for her future, so she's resistant to Mark's advances. Now the story escalates when the teams are on a training mission and one of the Troubleshooters employees goes missing. Come to find out, that employee has been kidnapped by a serial killer, and it is up to the SEALs and the Troubleshooters to try to rescue her. In the meantime, they're in New England, and a major blizzard rolls through, further complicating their efforts to get to their co-worker in time, hence the title, Into the Storm. I can't honestly say that I remembered a ton about this book. Most of what I remembered is actually the last half. Rereading it and realizing there are a ton of events that actually happen prior to and leading up to this training exercise in the New England wilderness. But that was all that I could recall, and I can't say that even rereading it, I was like, oh yeah. I wasn't. I had completely, not blocked out, but had completely forgotten all of the get to know you parts in the beginning of this book between all of the characters. Suzanne Brockmann is sort of known for cramming her books full of people, and Into the Storm is no different. This book sort of reads like a soap opera in a way, where there's all of these cutscenes where you move from the main characters to the main secondary characters to the secondary characters, and each group of people and each character sort of playing out their own miniature conflict. Now, it's only Mark and Lindsay's conflict that becomes truly resolved in the book, and that's what makes this book about them. But don't think that you're going to pick up book 15 in Suzanne Brockmann's Troubleshooter series and have any idea what's going on. She does a good job going back and trying to explain backstory without sounding like a recap. However, the characters in this book were around long before book number 10, and the book that I'm reviewing for you on Wednesday, Some Kind of Hero, Lindsay, the heroine of this novel, is actually a secondary or cameo character in that book 9 books later. That is both good and bad, because obviously it's difficult to jump right into the middle of the story, and yet there's something comforting about knowing the characters that you're getting. When book 19 rolls around, you sort of have a familiarity and either catch up on stories that have yet to be resolved, or you get to revisit and be happy for some of the characters who have already received their own personal HEA. These stories are complex. I've already mentioned the bucket loads of characters that she puts in there, and it's almost like a Suzanne Brockmann universe, like a Marvel universe, only it's exclusive to Suzanne Brockmann, where she must have this intricate, I imagine, given my wall of outlining, she must have this intricate web of notes on who's connected to who and what she still needs to resolve and what's been wrapped up. Getting an opportunity to read the newest one, book 19, was exciting for me, and I was very happy to do it because Suzanne Brockmann, like I said, is one of the authors responsible for pulling me back into reading as an adult. I am not going to sit here and pretend that I have read every Troubleshooters novel. I have not. In fact, I haven't even kept track of the ones that I have read and haven't read. I've read several Suzanne Brockmann novels, but most of them were back in the 2000s, in the late 2000s. Besides the intense character building, the other thing that's great about Suzanne Brockmann is her socially conscious writing, and I will be talking a lot more about that on Wednesday. But this is an author in romance who has never shied away from writing characters with racial diversity or writing characters with issues that are socially important, or writing LGBT characters into her novels. Suzanne Brockmann's son is gay, and in order to show support for her son, she did write an exclusively LGBT novel. And I remember when that came out, and I remember by that time Suzanne Brockmann had a huge following, and people picked up that book expecting to get something very much like Into the Storm, and in reality they were surprised to learn that the hero of the book was gay, and it was quite controversial. And I know from personal experience that Suzanne Brockmann lost some following because of that, and that's a real shame, of course. And I think these days, even though it's only been 10 years, it's become the right time for an author like Suzanne Brockmann. Suzanne Brockmann I feel like broke that ceiling, especially in romance, especially, not only is she writing really suspenseful, thrilling, action driven romance, but she's writing romance with interracial couples and LGBT couples, and this book, as well as Some Kind of Hero, examines issues that still exist from World War II and the hardships and conflicts that Japanese Americans face because of it. So, I mean, I feel like I'm going to be a broken record on Wednesday after having said all this, but this author, to sum it up, has definitely earned my respect, and actually earned it a really long time ago when I first read this book by her. I feel like not all of her novels are as long and involved as this one in particular, but I would have to go back and do a lot of rereading in order to provide evidence of that claim. I know that the new one that I just read was not quite as complex as Into the Storm. So there are books out there by Suzanne Brockmann that don't get all up in everybody's business, where they just stick to a main storyline and a main couple trying to solve one conflict and find their happily ever after. So when I do say that this author writes something for everybody who's at least a little bit of a fan of romance, I truly do mean it. And like I said, she writes with diversity and complexity and social consciousness. And I mean, the woman's written over 50 books. She's produced some feature films. Like, she's the real deal. And I encourage you to, if not this book, at least entertain the thought of finding something by Suzanne Brockmann that piques your interest, because I truly believe she is a very vital and important author, and you'll hear me brag about her some more and go on and on about her some more in my Wednesday review. Please check that out. It is an advanced reading copy set to release on July 11th. So again, Navy SEALs, the beginning of July. I'm feeling this whole patriotic vibe. I also have an amazing story about how I got my hands on this book. I don't keep a lot of copies of books. I've said that before. And books that I read back in the 2000s, I definitely don't have a lot of those copies left. So I did not have an Into the Storm, but as soon as I started reading Some Kind of Hero, I thought, it'd be really cool to do a Sunday Rewind right before that review, where I do Suzanne Brockmann's Into the Storm, the first book I ever read from her. And got online, got on Amazon, and it must have been fate, because there was this brand new hardcover, and I got this book for like $1.87 on Amazon, brand new, with sales tax, but with no shipping because I do have Prime. So, holy crap, I was super excited by that. If you are a Suzanne Brockmann fan, or if you have any questions, leave those comments for me down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed yourself, and I will see you on Wednesday with that eARC review for Some Kind of Hero.